to episode 96 of the Road is Dead podcast. I'm Rob Curtis, joined in the studio with
Tim Strelecki.
Leah Sanda.
And in Colorado, as usual, we are joined back again with
this is Mike Friedman.
And then joining us now via satellite from the great state of Indiana,
Rick Baisa.
There we go. Rick, you've been on a couple podcasts before, but I'm sure nobody has seen you before.
Probably
and
not.
Now
it's
they're
probably a good thing.
Now they're all tuning out.
Exactly.
Rick, it is nice to see you. Yeah, it is nice to see you
Thanks,
again,
Mike.
Rick.
I appreciate it.
I don't know. Rick's blurry as hell right now.
Yeah, Rick's got some really slow internet, it looks like.
You on dial-up there, Rick?
It's Indiana.
I grew up
48.8.
See?
I grew up in Indiana.
told
Indiana
you.
ain't that bad.
Stop making fun of this
Not
man's
according to
internet
Tim.
connection.
No.
Let's see. Do you have all your teeth, Rick?
I
Of course
do,
he does.
They're not all natural.
Okay. Well,
I was
according
going to say, how many of them are fake?
according to Tim, you are an anomaly for Indiana. But, which I take personal offense to that. I don't know.
Why is that?
I'm a Hoosier, man. I'm born and raised in Indiana.
No, I was
I'm
saying,
not
why
really a Hoosier.
why
went
am
to
I an
Purdue,
anomaly, though?
Because he thinks that the vast state of Indiana, the beautiful state of Indiana, is full of people that do not have all their teeth.
Oh, God.
He has
Got it.
idea.
Bro, if you saw what I saw yesterday, you might agree with me.
You do realize that the reality of that situation is that those individuals actually are a few miles south in the wonderful state of Kentucky.
No, Kentucky was a beautiful place compared to what I drove through in Indiana.
Sure.
Anyway, I'm sure they were all wonderful people.
Mike's like, whatever, man. I'm in Colorado.
Indiana,
I am an Illinois
if you're
transplant,
listening,
though.
if you're listening, Indiana, I'm not knocking you.
Every
just
single
saw
place
some
I've
wild
ever
stuff.
been has been beautiful. Every single place.
You're
You can find
lying.
beauty. I'm not lying, dude. You
You're
can find
lying.
beauty everywhere. Dude, Indiana, the cornfields that go for miles when you're riding those roads and you have the windmills there, that's a crazy place. The sunsets there are crazy. Dude, you can find beauty in any state.
Yeah,
Yes,
you can.
100%.
I guess I'm just a dick. Sorry, Indiana.
You're a dick, dude. Yeah. I hope.
No, that
people
really
in
was
Indiana
one of the
come
reasons
against-
we moved here, though, because we were in.
No.
I grew up in Tinley Park, and it was getting so busy that it was like 10 miles before you could get anywhere decent to ride anymore. And the house that we picked, one of the reasons we settled on it is because 2 miles from my house, I can be right in the middle of nowhere again. So
So along those lines, that's kind of why we selected to live out in Elgin. Was when we moved here, it was like you can't get out and be car free, so to speak, or be able on roads that you can readily ride on until you get all the way out. And we were on Randall Road at the time, basically. And Randall Road is like the far western edge of civilization for the Chicagoland area. So I don't know if anybody's ever heard this from me before, but I believe that a city starts in its downtown. And if you've had no break in the urbanist, jungle, that you're still in that city all the way until it ends, and then you have country, so to speak. So to me, Chicago ends at Randall Road on the west side of Elgin, Aurora, and all those western suburbs, But you tell anybody in Chicago that, oh, yeah, no, we're in Chicago. Where you at? Elgin. Yeah, no, that's not Chicago. And they take offense to it, and they get all pissed off. But so that's I totally get that.
Well, and here's the weird thing. I live about 10 miles outside of the loop in Western Springs, and I find better road riding by me than out here.
Interesting.
I don't. Well, okay, yeah, and I will say we're in a bit of
I have no country roads,
right,
but I have long stretches
and good
of
infrastructure
nice roads down in through Burr Ridge, down into Lamont. I've got all the long stretches of frontage roads, which are beautiful along the interstate, which, it's along the interstate. So what? I mean, it's actually really nice riding with not very little traffic and cross streets. And there's so many, and I have trails coming out my wazoo all over the place. I've got the I&M Canal. I've got the Salt Creek Trail, which connects into the Prairie Path, which could take me all the way here, literally 40 miles from home on bike trail.
Why do you drive here so much then?
Because it's 40 miles.
Well, but
if I had an e-bike, I would actually seriously consider commuting more. But I don't want to spend 2 hours and 20 minutes on my bike each way getting to work.
but there's so you both will ride here. I have not ridden here since I moved the shop here, and I rode to the other one a few times, 20 times maybe, but I don't feel safe commuting here because of that stretch between where the path ends and to get to the shop's last mile or so, and the last mile is so treacherous to me. I don't know how you guys feel.
I've never ridden up to here from sorry, poke you.
Okay.
From the trail. I've never, but to me, it doesn't seem like that big of a deal. I've ridden out to Penny Road before from the trail out through the back.
But you can get to Penny Road easier, I think.
Yeah, but then it's easy to get in.
But
from
to come
the back
up
door
to come up 72 and cross in 20, no one cares about this. I don't know why we're talking about it.
Okay,
sorry.
I have the same problem though. It's like the whole ride to work is great except for 1 mile that keeps me from doing it, and it's so bad that it's just not worth it.
You're taking your life into your own hands,
literally,
when you do it. Yeah, it's crazy.
That's interesting. I wonder how many of those places exist where that infrastructure could be installed so that people like yourselves would ride to work.
I would argue that almost everywhere is that way.
Yeah, I mean, if it's literally only a mile, that's a pretty reasonable, seems like an affordable investment to figure out how to make that work.
And it's you ride it all the time. You say sidewalks, but there's areas where there are not sidewalks, so you have to be riding on 72.
Coming from the old shop up the climb out of West Dundee, I just ride the sidewalk. There's enough to get you almost to the light at 25. Then I just cross the street, ride with traffic in the gutter for a minute. There's a pull out where they're starting to do some more developing. I pull out there, wait for the traffic to go by, then I cross the street,
jump over,
and come in. I almost fell into the same bucket where when I first came to this location, and I think I told you, I was like, this is like the worst place you could have moved to based off of that little stretch, that 1 mile stretch. But then I just figured it out. I'm like, it's the end of the ride. I'll just ride the sidewalk.
And I think that's it. Once you figure it out, you're good. So a great example. I didn't think there was a lot of riding areas where I've been riding for the last 20 years. I have my routes. I do my thing. But none of them are very close to my house. And there's very few times I can actually just walk out my door and go on a ride. There's a couple key major thoroughfares that box me in, so to speak. And it's just not really safe riding on them. At least that's the way I always felt. Saturday, I went on a 60-mile ride. Well, it's supposed to be 60. We cut it to 50 with Anthony. And he showed me more gravel than I thought existed near us, and different routes and roads that I've never taken, and now I feel completely comfortable taking, and they were all within a couple miles of my house, and I've been here for 20 years, and I had no idea, So so thank you, Anthony, if you're listening, for taking me out and doing that. So now I got some more routes, but I think to Mike, your point. I know you've always advocated for people getting on bikes and taking bikes for more, trips that they have to do. The whole thing in bicycle advocacy is you talk about the last mile or those. There's a phrase for it, but most of the trips are under a mile or two that most people take, or under 5 miles that you could easily take with a bike. But I've always felt like there's just areas by our urban design that they square people out, and there's no way to easily get over them and get through them with a bike safely.
The infrastructure is definitely a problem. We're very, very, very much a car-centric society. That's for sure. There are lots of organizations, People for Bikes being one of them. Bicycle Colorado here is also very much the advocacy side of things. In Boulder and there's a number of other towns, but I know Boulder the best currently. The bike infrastructure. There's a lot of people who ride here. If you come here right now, you'll see hundreds of people riding like different things. E-bikes carrying kids. Going for rides, mountain bikes, gravel bikes, road bikes. People commuting. My girlfriend, dude, she rides the Golden on Highway 93. I built her an e-bike. She's on a Diamondback Clarity with one of those Bafang motors. She's hauling ass at 30 miles an hour down to Golden. It's the same time to get to Golden as it is for her to drive. I even took a blower out there to blow at the bike lane. That's another thing they don't do really well is clearing the bike lanes. There's all kinds of shit in the bike lanes.
Clearing the shoulders. Yeah,
absolutely.
Yeah. It's interesting. The different communities. it's also like a comfort thing. So many people are afraid to actually hop on a bike. I mean, I see it all the time. I mean, the level of fear of falling and not having control is such a huge component of riding a bike. You know, we're so comfortable, we'll take it for granted. But I mean, literally, that's why Pedaling Minds exists, is to teach people how to have that control so you feel safe riding your damn bike. I mean, you're not going to do it if you don't have the confidence or at least the security. You're not going to get hurt. And let's face it, falling off of a bike, even if you're not moving, hurts.
Yeah,
you know,
absolutely.
so
Absolutely.
it can hurt. It can hurt. You know, so
It always blows me away. We have
so
like a pretty short bike path down the street from us, 3 or 4 miles, but I constantly see people with bike racks driving their bikes who I know only live, half a mile away, that will drive down to the park and park at the park and take their bikes off and go for a ride, as opposed to riding the additional half a mile to actually get to the bike path that's down there.
And I understand that, because if you're not comfortable riding it, it's probably the last thing you should be doing is riding it. But it's become a meme now, is in a lot of cycling culture online, where people talk about how everyone has to. The big thing is, bicycling said the best bicycle accessory was a Ford F-150. I don't know if you guys saw that, but they put that out at one point. Bicycling Ford's a huge advertiser with them, and it's bicycling. It's more mainstream than what we would traditionally consider to be cycling culture. And they put in some lists that, like top 10 bike accessories or something like that, and they listed the Ford F-150. And everyone just took issue with that and just ran with that. And so now it's a meme to make fun of everybody who cycles that's driving a truck. And they always say, trail bros having to drive their huge lifted trucks just so that they can get to the place to actually ride off-road. It's not like they would ever take their truck there or drive their truck off-road, but that's a whole nother thing. But so I get it. Anyway, that wasn't why we came here to talk today, but I kind of want to cover a couple of things that have popped up more recently. I don't know if everybody saw it, but Tulsa was this last weekend. I don't know if you caught any coverage of it, Mike.
Dude, I've been running camps, man. When I'm running summer camps, it's consuming. So,
well, you saw, though, I'm assuming you saw, because I think we shared it around, but apparently in one of the, I think Friday night?
I think so.
Friday night in the night crit, there was a little bit of a wreck, a pile up or something or another, and somebody caught on camera the Legion stomp, where somebody, it looks like from the Legion team, stomped on the wheel of another rider that went down with them, apparently, in, let's say, protest over what had happened. And I just wanted to talk about that a little bit. I mean, is it unfair for us to just say, hey, that was a dick move, you should never do that? Is this something that you guys would expect to see happening in a race? Is it par for the course? Is it just regular dirty racing that we see in all sorts of different forms anyway? Or what do you guys think?
It's immature seeming to me. I mean, tempers flare. I've seen people get their panties in a twist over something that happened in a race, and they have words and maybe do a little chest bumping stuff, but to lose your shit to the point where you start stomping on somebody else's bike, that is just somebody that just has absolutely no control of their emotions. It's just childish, personally.
Yeah, I don't think it was a cool thing to do. I think when I saw it, I was like, well, I wasn't one bit surprised at all.
Why weren't you surprised?
Because
the reputation they have.
Yeah.
So you weren't surprised that it was Legion doing it?
No, not at all. Not at all. I think they're competitive as everyone else is, but they're the we're going to dish it out, but when it gets dished to us, we're not going to stand for it, or we're going to cry about it. Granted, this was a racing issue. I didn't watch the whole crash.
Yeah.
I saw the crash in the corner, and I saw the stomp. I'm not going to speculate that I even remotely know what happened, but I think it is. You look pretty stupid in my eye doing something like that. I mean, it happens. Whether it was his fault or whatever the case was that caused the crash, be a little bit more respectful. Be a man. address it after the fact. Get back on, continue the race if you're able. Address it after the fact, off camera, away from things. Go to the rider's pit, go to his van, go somewhere. Address it after. Don't just do that. I understand, like Leah said, you're in the heat of the moment. Things happen. You get aggravated. Who knows what the scenario was in the laps prior? And another thing, he stomps on his wheel. Maybe that dude's got to buy a new wheel now.
Oh yeah,
that dude doesn't have a wheel sponsor. That team doesn't have a wheel sponsor, and this dude's got to come out $1,500, $2,000 to buy a new wheel just because of that.
For sure, because I know for a fact that guy was not sponsored by us. Our wheel would have made it through. No problem.
I think it's pretty ugly. It's pretty shameful, in my opinion.
It seems like something with this team, though, that it's been developing over the last couple of years, too.
There you go.
I mean, they've been around for, 5 years now, 6 years, whatever it is,
Something
maybe
like
longer,
that,
I don't know. But over the last couple of years, there have been just more and more and more of these incidents, and it seems that, I don't want to say tolerated, but I mean, it has, hasn't it? It's been tolerated, and they've been building this reputation, and at what point does either USAC or their sponsors or something happens in terms of a consequence that affects somebody that kind of gets them a look back in line,
It's interesting that you say sponsors and this and that, because I almost hate to say it, but their sponsors, it almost just plays into the image that they almost want to portray. The tough guys, the bad guys, I mean, Red Bull's all about that kind of crap.
That's only a Justin Williams sponsor.
Oh, true. Yeah.
He's the Red Bull of the squad.
But it's kind of, that's what they've been pushing is the image. So like I wanted to share, there was a meme that we found, but it's, Legion, hey, we want to build cycling and we want to make it inclusive and diverse. Also, Legion, parking lot crit brawls, curb stomping competitors' bikes, being terrible people, not paying out winnings, putting down rivals in interviews, and chopping riders. So, I mean, that all checks out.
Was the incident where the Williams brothers and the other guy that was on Best Buddies?
That was a crit brawl.
Yeah, crit brawl. Wasn't that last year at Tulsa? I think it was.
Wasn't it at Tulsa?
I think it was at Tulsa last year.
I thought it was.
Could be
it was
wrong.
after Nationals. I thought.
I don't know.
I don't remember the timing last
regardless,
year,
I think it's poor sportsmanship. Period.
Yeah.
So it's also deliberate, like if dude got up thinking about what he was going to do and you go for the most vulnerable thing. And you're right. Like one shot at the rim is going to shatter that. It's going to case that rim.
Dude, one stomp.
And it's funny because they want suspension for other people, but that warrants a fine or suspension. I mean, it's an
absolutely
act of, aggression that's just completely unsportsmanship but also I mean, I'm curious again, there's two sides of the story. What happened to lead to that? Was it a one-off incident or was the guy, cutting in numerous times and being aggressive? What leads to someone to do that kind of
if
have
I
that
can
reaction?
cut in for a second, Mike, let's make it worst case scenario. Make it the worst thing that you can possibly imagine that the other guy did to him before.
Yeah, it doesn't matter. Right.
No, I'm asking, does it matter?
Oh.
I mean,
well,
is there ever a situation where...
No, you never take that action. No. Why would you? You would never take that action. I would, it seems crazy. That's what we're talking about. It seems like over the top. Why would he do that?
Now, in your experience, were there ever any teams or riders that were just that way, that always rode dirty? Whether it's stomping a wheel or something else like that. But did you have situations like that where there were people you avoided, or you just saw some shit that just made you shake your head?
Dude, I saw, this is a story from T-Town. There was, T-Town always had some aggression, different riders doing different things. And I watched a rider pull out the bars of another rider and intentionally crash this person. Like after the race, dude, race finishes, the guy rolls up, pulls the bars, immediate crash. And it was all on video, dude. It was super crazy,
I would lose my shit. If I was the one that got my bars pulled, I would lose my shit.
I think I saw that on video.
Yeah, I saw that
I
video.
think I've seen that one.
What year?
It wasn't too awful long ago.
It's 2006.
Yeah, 15 years ago or something like that.
7.
I'm going to go see if there's video of that.
Yeah, they're. I mean, you'll know the guys. We've talked about them.
Doesn't he? He comes by him and just like slaps his bar, doesn't he?
No, he pulls up on him.
Yeah,
Yeah, that was a pretty crazy thing. I saw another guy jump into a race, like, we were in the same race, and he sits out and then jumps in like 300 meters from the line and throws his arms up, and is like, dude, what? Like, like legit was trying to cheat, and it's just like, wow, that's crazy, dude. Like, just the mindset to even do that is just like, phew.
Yeah.
Like, but I also at one point told someone I wouldn't sprint against them and sprinted out of like, because I was out of control of my emotions, like,
I think that's still common. That's happening for sure still.
Yeah. Well, I regretted that one. I mean, that one went on American Life or This American Life or whatever. That's some crazy shit.
American Life. Yeah.
That was weird.
I remember that episode. That was kind of weird because I always listened to that and I was like, wait a minute. How did Mike end up on This American Life? Yeah. So, I mean, not to beleaguer the point, but the whole, is this just Legion digging a deeper hole? And I kind of feel bad about it because I think that this kind of only pertains to the men's side. I don't see this kind of action and activity out of the women's side, although there have been apparently some controversies on the women's side that I am not totally privy to, but I see like one of the Ryan sisters like
hooking,
apparently defending herself in her social media.
Yeah.
But it's like, but anyway, I don't see the actions as being terrible actions on the women's side or even all the men. Like I'm thinking specifically of Cross, Lancey Pants, Lance Hydet. I've met him. He actually spent a couple hours here in the shop. I didn't realize it was him at the time. And I just sat and talked to him, and he actually wanted to learn how to glue tubulars. And I gave him a lot of information on it. It was kind of fun. But I didn't realize it at the time that was even him. One of the nicest guys I've met. And I've never seen him do anything in a race that I would, even remotely judge as being. But I don't think he's not on their crit squad, is he?
He is. I think he's dealing with a knee injury.
Okay.
He rides them every once in a while.
I was going to say, I haven't seen him out there. Yeah.
Well, I was just going to say, dude, the ability to make it right. Like that whole thing with that article, that is This American Life thing, Rob, was me trying to make it right. So like these guys that are intentionally doing this shit, it's like, how does this guy make it right? You're absolutely right. The guy should get a free set of wheels from Legion, or at least a free set of wheels,
Nah, they're zips and they're they're hookless. Fuck that.
Cymet should sponsor them. Well,
Legion should pay Cymet to sponsor them.
There you go.
That would work. That way it wouldn't conflict with their sponsorship and everything else.
I don't know.
I mean, the thing. Sorry, go ahead, Tim.
No. I was just going to say, I think it will boil over at one point. Someone from that squad will do something that's downright nasty, and the book will get thrown at them.
Didn't we have that though with the Crip Brawl? That was just widely.
Yeah, but I mean, worse than that. Worse than that. It's only a matter of time.
Well, they gotta get it. They gotta nip it in the butt, man. I mean, they actually have a platform to actually do good. So it's how do you turn around an organization that has this image that's kind of getting known for and correct it so you can actually continue to have that impact? I mean, they really do. They have sponsors and people that are behind their mission. So, if this shit keeps happening, how do you fix that? I mean, that would be a bummer to lose another cycling team over time, to this shit. Like, how do you figure out how to be?
Are we seeing it more often because it's getting caught more often on people's videos?
I don't know.
That's probably a factor.
How many other teams, are doing that stuff? Like, or do we hear about it more? I don't know that any other teams are doing that. I don't know. I mean, we never did that shit on Optum. We never did that shit on Jelly Belly. We never did that shit in Garmin. We never did that shit.
Did you see it happen a lot?
Never. In race, you probably saw it happen. In race, when you're there.
I mean, in the heat of the moment, there's yelling and stuff going on. Yeah. Like, me and Bernard Eisel got into it at one point, but like it's like we actually became friends after. You have a mutual respect for each other. You're out there doing the same thing.
You're all fighting for the same thing. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, which is a pittance, really. And also, it's like, it's already dangerous enough, So, I mean, that's kind of why I'm curious what happened to lead to that crash, right? Because it's like, why does that guy get so angry? Why is that the reaction? Why is that the response to the situation?
I mean, it could be, you're right, Leah. It doesn't matter, but the guy could have been, The guy could have been, chopping them for the last 3 corners, and then he went to chop them again, slid out. I don't know. Again, I didn't see the crash. I just saw the aftermath. But to react like that, something you had to be poking the bear for a little bit.
Well, okay. So what's the appropriate response? Is it relegation in that race? Is it disqualification from that race? Is it a suspension?
What's the policy? What's the rules? What does USA Cycling have for that?
Yeah, good luck with
Any
that
of
one.
the above, it's up to the choices of the officials.
Yeah, that's not.
You've had to go through some of that in your official duties. I said duty.
What do you think? What do you
one retaliation, and it's never going to happen because I'm sure the Legion squad brings people to the event that are full Legion backers. But if you're the event organizer and this continually happens at your event, you can be like, you know what? You're not invited this year. You're not coming here. I don't want you here.
That's a tough thing to do. I get that.
I'm sure
I understand that, but that one's a tough one to do because I was just trying to think in my head. I'm like, what would I do if I had a situation like that and I was in any kind of official capacity? I couldn't blame the other riders on the team for that one rider's action, but part of me would want to be like, listen, seems to be a culture on your team. But I think personally, I would have to fall back on leaving it up to USA Cycling to actually sanction the riders individually or as a team or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
But I think it's high time that somebody start maybe poking the team from an official position.
I have this feeling that if it wasn't for the popularity of this particular team, that maybe harsher penalties would have been issued by now.
If that was just a random rider on a different team, yeah, for sure.
Because if we saw that kind of shit happening consistently just in local racing through local teams, and there's one particular team like that, no, that would not be stood for.
Well, is anything actually happening? I mean, okay, there's all these other things, but what? Yeah, so
I mean, it's hard to judge a situation when you don't have all the details because we don't have all the details, but
at the end of the day, I think we can all agree. I guess
the optics are not good.
Curb stomp, bad
sportsmanship.
The optics are not good, consistently not good against them, and so unfortunately, that is getting them more and more harshly judged and less likely to give them the benefit of the doubt at this point, the more of this stuff that keeps happening.
So along with that, then, that type of behavior being bad, let's jump tracks now to what happened this morning with at the U23 Giro. A group of 20 riders, 15 or 20 riders were disqualified. And it was because there was video captured of all of them catching free rides on team cars and police motos going up the Stelvio, I think. I don't remember which climb it was.
Was this a group at the back of the race?
It was, for all intents and purposes, from what I understand, was a gruppetto. So, but it's a great video of all of them crowded around this car, and it was caught on video. And the caption that I saw was, "Isn't that so nice? One of the team cars broke down, and all those riders were able to push it up the Stelvia." But they all got suspended, dropped out of the race, disqualified from the race, what have you, after the fact. Positions on that. I know, Tim, you're like, yeah, screw it. I mean, they cheated.
Absolutely. You're still in the race. You're at the back of the race, but you're the gruppetto. There's none of that.
It's widely known that there's kind of like different, there's some help here and there for people in the gruppetto, depending on the situation.
Everybody gets a sticky bottle here and there, but to have half the gruppetto or the entirety of the gruppetto get free help, it's wrong. I think the call was correct. Teach them a lesson to not do it as a professional.
Well, again, it's a judgment call that officials have to make as to whether or not this is an opportunity to educate these young men that this is something that is going to get them kicked out of the race if they do this again, and you have that conversation or a warning. But maybe there's been consistent behavior, and maybe they have been warned. Maybe they were specifically told this. Who knows? and they did it anyway. I don't know. But so it's a judgment call. You kind of have to just kind of hope that assume that the officials are making a proper judgment call. But
My question is, would they have made the same call like 20 years ago when there wasn't, cell phones and all this video around where they were watching everything?
No, they never would have known about it. They never would have known about it.
Yeah, exactly. I think
never would have known about it. Everything would have been private. Yeah.
It's interesting.
Yeah, a lot of riders in the modern peloton are getting caught doing things they probably shouldn't do because of the advancements in technology and the ability to film things.
That's kind of where I'm getting at. So it's like, we keep seeing this behavior. Is this behavior really unique, or is it just that we're finally seeing it?
I mean, if it's not on a moto, you got you got fan cell phone footage. If it's not on that, you got a drone footage,
or you got somebody's onboard camera.
Yeah, so there's a lot more ways that unsportsmanlike conduct can be caught.
I don't know, Mike. I mean, you raced in Europe. I'll ask kindly, were you ever in a gruppetto?
Yeah.
I mean, what's the protocol?
I've actually done this.
That's kind of why I asked.
Do tell.
I had a feeling.
It was.
I would.
It's all right. You're retired. Let it out.
It was me and Cavendish and like two other dudes. And dude, the races are so hard in Italy. Some of the races are so hard and so much climbing. Like we were at the bottom of the climb and they were going over the top of dude, I don't even know how far up we had to go, but the helicopter was this tiny little thing. Jeez. It was impossible. And we were way, way, way off the back and we were not going to make time cut. And yeah, I mean, it was a decision, to try to get up the climb to make up some times we're at least within time cut. We're not competitive at all in the race, Now, that being said, the next day you're all competitive again, right? So, it's definitely
there's a reason they have a time cut.
Yeah, there's a reason they have a time cut, and it only ever happened once, and it was Tirreno Adriatico. It was brutal, dude. Yeah. Anyways,
and see, I get that, and I can understand that, and I think to me, it's a little bit of the legend and the lore of racing. It's kind of like the things that make road kind of unique and almost nostalgic and romantic. Kind of like all the BS with the leader and the tour. Like if the leader wrecks, you don't attack. You sit up and you wait. You pay the respect to the jersey and just little stuff like that. I mean, everyone has a bad day. Everyone can go off the back, and it may not mean that they're crap for the rest of the race, but they're definitely not going to play a role in that day's stage. What's wrong with getting a little bit of a ride up the side of the mountain? A little, to your point, a little ride here and there, no big deal. But I mean, getting hauled up the whole thing.
Yeah,
we didn't do that.
When the bottle has JB Weld on it, it's like...
yeah. I mean, anytime you're holding onto the car, you're getting
nice
a free
analogy.
lift, and we didn't do it the whole climb up. We had to ride sections, but for sure we were doing up the steep stuff, dude. It was ridiculous. I mean, some of the stages are like almost borderline. I mean, I guess these other guys just flew up it, right? But some of them are like just ridiculous, dude. And we were a bit of a heavier person, man. It's like.
It's not easy.
What do you want me to do on this one?
Yeah.
I have no idea what you're talking about.
Yeah.
That's how it's the thought process when you're staring at this, it's just, dude, it's it's just like a memory of just suffer, it's just complete suffer. But, yeah.
Wow.
But so, it's definitely cheating for sure. It's probably safer to have riders out of the bunch. It makes the race easier. But, I mean, there's also a team car helping there, right? And police officers helping there. Why? Well, it's also like what's coming up. Is there a storm? They have to open the roads again? Like, what's the safety protocol there? Like what are the other situations that are, possibly need to be considered? Because if you have guys way off the back, and they have to keep the roads open in some city, and you got to get them over this pass, otherwise you can't reopen the roads. That's, you have to make a decision. So maybe it looks worse than it is, but it actually is a safety thing.
I side with that. I don't think there's a black and white on this.
At what point in the race did it happen? Was it the final climb? Did they still have, how many Ks did they have to go?
Couldn't tell you, but I got the impression it was a final climb.
Oh, okay.
There may have been a descent and a run down after that, but I got the impression it was a final climb.
Yeah, I mean, that makes a big difference.
Definitely the steepest climb of the day. I would give them that. So, not to belabor that, but the next thing I was going to look at, new Apex introduction. I don't know that we got to talk much about it, but the embargo apparently was up today. Not that I knew about it before the embargo because I'm not one of the cool kids anymore. But Apex, SRAM's lowest group for road, they introduced a new version of it that's 12-speed and electronic. They are only offering it in one buy. And the only thing it seems that makes it Apex are the cassette ratios up to 40, 38 maybe, 40-ish.
40.
And then over that, they go up to 50 with a Eagle version, GX, whatever.
Entry-level gravel.
So there you go. And I just thought it was unique because to me, this marks, now they are still offering it in a mechanical version. So we do have that. But I found it interesting that this is now all the entry-level groups from the two major manufacturers. I'm not counting Campy because let's face it, Campy's just for old rich guys. And romantic, nostalgic people. Beautiful group, but whatever. In all reality, all the entry-level groups now for road are available in electronic versions. And it's kind of bringing electronic to the masses. That has some pluses and minuses. I found it unique because this week I was reflecting on the idea of switching to electronic, and I got onto an old forum that I used to visit all the time, and I saw somebody post something about electronic on there going, I just don't trust electronic. I would rather have the reliability of mechanical. And it made me actually think about it, and now that I'm like 5-6 years into dealing with it and writing it and everything else, I now can firmly say that electronic is way more trouble-free than any mechanical system that I've ever worked with.
I agree with you because, okay, I'll give you an example. I did the Epic Fest mountain bike race on last Saturday. 38 miles of single track took me a smidge over 4 hours. I have SRAM electronic on my mountain bike. I checked my gear. I checked my battery before I left to head up there, and it was still green. I'm thinking, all right, cool. But I'm going to charge an extra battery, make sure I have a fully charged battery in my hydration pack. I forgot to take the battery off my bike when I packed it in the car, and it's a 6.5, 7 hour drive.
Yeah.
I'm warming up before my race, and that just registered in my brain, and I'm like, oh shit, I should probably check my battery. So I get off the bike and check it, and it's like solid red. It's not blinking red yet, but solid red. I'm like, all right, good thing I have an extra battery. I switched the batteries right before the start of the race so that I'd have a fresh battery. Checked it, it was red. My backup battery was showing red. I thought, oh shit, what the hell? I charged this. Oh well, it is what it is. So I do the race. 29 miles into the race, my battery dies. Jump off the bike really quick, grab the other battery that I had just taken off. I knew it still had charge in it, put it on, switch batteries real quick, and I'm back on it. Finished the race no problem. But the SRAM tent was there at the event, and I rolled up and explained the situation, and he just swapped batteries. He grabbed a brand new one off a demo bike and just swapped with me. And he's like, here, take this one sometime. Maybe it's bad. It's a battery that I've used in the past just fine, but it just did not fully charge.
Yeah.
So it just went bad. And I did not check it after I had charged it. So note to self is your batteries can tend to go bad, but also always have a backup. But all things considered, I would rather have that situation to deal with than trying. What are you going to do? Are you going to fix a broken cable in the middle of a race?
Nope.
Am I going to string a new shifter cable? No.
Or how about if you crash and your internals are like gutted.
Right. I mean, of all things that you need to worry about and think about during a race, needing to have a spare backup battery is I'll pick that every day.
I agree
never
with you
thought
on that
of
one.
that's never even occurred to me. I mean, I upgraded to GX1 last year on my mountain bike, and I rode it the entire season and never charged it one time. So, I mean, I understand how they could. Yeah, I never charged it. I don't think once. But those
you
batteries
must not have ridden a lot.
I rode at least twice a week.
Did you ride that much? Do you ride?
But like those batteries are so much smaller. Those batteries are so much smaller than the Ultegra or the Shimano batteries.
Okay, the Shimano battery will by far outlast the SRAM batteries.
Yeah, but they're like built in,
12 to 1
inside your frame, so you're just kind of.
I mean, to your point, you were like, we were getting ready to do the 10,000, and you were like, hey, make sure your battery's charged. You don't want to run out and not be able to front shift when you're out there. And I didn't tell you this at the time because you would have been like, you're crazy. But in my head, I was like, this is a new build, Di2. I had charged it up when I first built it. I think I ran it down a bit and then recharged it so I get a full charge out of it. And I knew I was hovering at 60% on that because I've got the D-Fly and everything, and I can see it on my head unit. I'm like, I know I'm at 60%. I'm just going to go for it because I know that I should not see much of a drop on this, even though I'm going to be shifting more than ever, especially with the front, taking a lot of juice and everything else like that. And, worst comes to worst, if it does die out there, at least I got a story to tell, right? A reason why I had to cut everything short.
Yeah. Good one.
My worst case, I don't have to ride the whole thing.
Mm-hmm.
So I went out there. It went from 60% over to that 40 miles and 4,000 feet of climbing and probably, 500 shifts. Went from 60% to 58%.
Nice.
And Anthony, last night, we got done with a group ride, and he was on his road bike, and this is his first electronic group on his road bike that he just got. And he goes, hey, I got to ask you, is it weird? I have not had to charge this. He goes, I didn't even know how to, check the charge on it because I've got a ton of rides on it now, and I haven't plugged it in to charge it once, and I figured it out, and I pressed the button, and it's still showing green. Is that normal? And I'm like, yeah, man.
For Shimano,
honestly, for the Shimano setup, now, granted, he's riding a lot more than me, but not on his road bike. But if you're riding, I would say the way that most average recreational cyclists ride, 6 months on a charge. Easy. Charge it twice a year, at most. If you're riding it indoor in the trainer, maybe not, you charge it a little bit more.
I thought you said that with the SRAM that when she drives, it's activating the accelerometers or whatever to turn the battery system on.
And that's a big drain. So I don't know, Rick. I mean, were you throwing it in the car and driving with it at all?
Yeah. So, and I didn't know that.
Were you throwing it in your F-150 so you can get to the trailhead?
Exactly.
I have never ever taken my batteries off if my bike's on the car, ever.
How could that even drain it that much? I mean, if it has the ability to last for that long, how can just driving your car drain your battery just because the accelerometer has activated the system? I mean, the only time it's really drawing is when it's torquing the motor.
Yeah, if the wheels are stationary and the cranks aren't moving, how do you get any accelerometer?
Well, it probably isn't big as much of a battery.
Answer the question.
If you're shifting, that's a bigger power drain than it just sitting there being awake saying, waiting for a signal. So it's awake, so it is going to draw the battery down, but not as much as if you were constantly shifting.
But there's a reason why they put that feature in to shut it off, because otherwise it would drain the battery down.
It's why they always tell you, SRAM will tell you, take your batteries out before you travel.
Because I did not know that.
Bullshit. That's bullshit.
Yes.
Bullshit.
Now, how long are your travel?
Charge my Shimano before I go do a gravel ride, but won't pull his batteries
I do not
off.
pull my batteries out for short trips if I'm just coming back and forth to work and stuff like that.
I have never had a battery
this was a 7-hour drive, and
it's only 40 minutes where I go usually. So.
Yeah, I've never had a battery die. I've never pulled a battery, never had a battery die. Do you know why? Because I'm smart with charging my batteries.
So you charge them every ride?
Every single fucking ride.
Yeah.
Sorry for the F-bomb, folks, but because I don't want to be that guy.
Yeah, that's what I was going to get to. It's like, but see, I don't live in that battery fear. You know what I mean? I want to refuse to live in that area, and I really kind of want to push the tech, but I don't want to be stranded without a charge. And to my knowledge, I've only had one instance where I didn't have battery on, and it was a Shimano setup. And let's face it, it was after I'd had a long period off the bike. I put it on the trainer, and it wouldn't shift, and it was on the trainer. So I plugged it in, waited 3 minutes, and then I left it plugged in, and I was able to ride it on the trainer. But I don't know. I think
the future's electronic.
Yeah,
man.
And I think it is more reliable. I think it is. I fought it for a lot of years. I kept saying, yeah, I'd prefer to have cable. If I was doing long cross-country touring, which the kids now call bike packing, I believe.
Yeah, get on board.
If I was doing bike packing and it was a trip longer than like a week, I probably would prefer to have mechanical.
Dude, I'd have like 7 batteries.
Yeah.
I'd have like
it's either that or I'd have like a solar charger or some crap, you know?
Yeah, you can do that.
You can get power banks. Oh, speaking of which, so I did see this. It's kind of cool. For e-bike setups, SRAM does have an adapter that works with, I believe, Bosch systems. So it replaces your battery. You actually take the battery off of your SRAM rear derailleur, Axis rear derailleur, and you plug in this thing. It's an adapter module that looks like a battery interface, and it's got a cable coming off of it. And you plug it into the either controller on the system, the motor, or into the battery. I can't remember, but it basically has the ability to drop down the 40 volt or whatever system that they've got down to the voltage that they need to run on the derailleur, so that you can, in essence, eliminate the need to charge your derailleur batteries ever again. You just charge your regular e-bike battery system. But speaking of e-bikes, we were talking about them earlier, and maybe you guys, I want to get your guys' opinions on this if you feel the same way as me, but we're seeing more and more e-bikes. Good. I think it's great that there's more e-bikes out there. I think they offer more alternatives for people to use bicycles as transportation. I think it does get more people on bikes and gets them outside. And I think that those are all positive things. What concerns me, apart from the general lack of reliability in spec and build for that kind of a vehicle, like brakes being undersized, like we've talked about before, or being improperly built, is the idea that a lot of them are very inexpensive versions, but they're also like fat bikes. And so there's these e-fat bikes that I am now seeing in huge abundance on the trails. And what I find then is you've got, Karen and Kyle, who went out and bought huge fat e-bikes and have never really ridden a bicycle in their life. And because the regulations being the way that they are, and how many companies just don't pay any attention to them, these are full throttle. They're the illegal type of e-bikes where they are just throttle controlled. Or they've got such a huge assist that you have these individuals that have never ridden a bike riding very heavy bicycles with huge tires that are kind of hard to handle at speeds that they can't really handle the bike at, on infrastructure that was built for regular bicycles going sometimes half that speed. And I can't help but feel like we're heading down a path of a lot of issues or a lot of wrecks. Are we going to get to the point where we're like, I can't ride on the path anymore because it's too dangerous because of all the e-bikes?
Most paths have stated speed limits. And I think if we start having issues, you're going to find those speed limits start to get enforced, I think.
Great. So now
so what screws us, because if it's a 15 mile an hour speed limit, that screws me because I am probably riding.
Sign me up. I will be an officer on a bike.
I would love to see that. Path police.
Sign me up. I will come at you with like Officer Mike. I'll have my hat on, sunglasses, pull you over.
In my defense, in very crowded areas of trail, in residential areas, I go slow. I use those areas as cool down and warm up. And then I find a section of trail that is where very few people ride, and there's really not much of anything down there, and that's where I go fast.
We should do this.
There used to be a path police. So in a section in McHenry County up near us, they had a path police program, and it was a volunteer program, I believe. And you could volunteer to ride the path up and down for enforcement of whatever, the speed limit and like riding two abreast and stuff like that. Stupid stuff. That was like 20 years ago. And I do remember when I moved here, I was riding it a couple times, and I would see people, and they had this like yellow jacket, I want to say, that they were riding with, said like Forest Preserve something, and they would patrol the path and ride along it. They obviously got rid of it, that or I just never see them. No one's doing it anymore, but I can't imagine it. But there have been people that we know that have gotten speeding tickets on the path.
I have heard of it, but very rarely.
Kurt Benson got a speeding ticket coming down the S turn near 31 right after they opened it. He was going 28 or something.
Well, yeah, that's
and
a fun
posted,
place to go
yeah,
fast.
I always go that fast.
I live where I live. I have my garage is in an alley, and right behind the alley is the prairie path. It is an asphalt portion of the prairie path, and every single day, multiple times a day, I hear, whoa! I hear this ungodly hum coming from the distance, and sure enough, it's freaking Scooter Steve just ripping down on a fat e-bike.
That's the thing. I've been seeing scooters.
A lot of electric scooters.
No, not. I mean, I didn't mean to use the word scooter, but to what we're talking about, electric fat bikes, and they're just ripping down the path.
Oh,
and
you hear their tires. You're hearing their
yeah,
tires.
you can hear the hum in the distance, and then they rip by at like 30 miles an hour.
I can hear those from farther away than I can a Tesla.
And I think it's gonna. I don't know how. I mean, the only way I see path police working is if Mike becomes the path police.
We should just prank, dude. We should just do a prank and just be like the most ridiculous outfit. Like,
I'm all for it.
Yeah, no.
But one of the problems on those paths, though, is there's
none
of this is posted anywhere on any of these paths.
No.
It's like people get on the paths and they just want to go as fast as they can because they can.
Oh, but most of the paths, a lot of them have signs.
We do have signs.
I've never seen a sign on a path anywhere.
I haven't either.
Yeah, all the ones I do.
Yeah.
All the ones I ride on do.
All the ones up in McHenry County, they've got a sign right when it crosses into McHenry County. It's got all the rules, and it's got a speed limit posted and everything. And then it's posted quite a few times along the path.
Those people aren't reading that.
No one's reading it.
The only sign I see is for the snowmobiles to stay on the mat in the middle of the bridge.
I can believe that.
But I don't know how you police that. Unfortunately, there's going to be some people that get hurt, whether they're on the bikes or
I don't know. When I was in Florida, there were kids on dirt bikes ripping up and down the bike trail.
Yeah.
I was like, what the hell? That's
I have
ballsy.
one of those in my neighborhood.
And
but
I don't know if that's an anomaly.
No one's going to stop them. Who's going to stop them in Florida? I mean, how many people? There are some communities that ride in Florida. So it really depends where you are. But if you're out there and you're in an infrastructure that has bike trails, yeah, you're going to get more motorcycles out there.
I got a great little story, little anecdote. Julie and I went out for a coffee ride a few weeks back. And while we were riding, we got passed by a group. Have any of you guys ever seen the movie Hackers from the 90s?
Long time ago.
One of the greatest movies ever.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly. That whole goth and 90s techno pirate kind of aesthetic. We had a group of maybe 15 to 20 people pass us as we were riding, and they were all on e-devices. So either those single wheels, or little throttle e-bikes and all sorts of arrays, scooters. It was a total e-bike gang, and they were all sharing that whole emo goth vibe and aesthetic, and they're just rolling along in a group together, and Julie was like, what the hell is that? And I'm like, I don't know, man. It's a club from online. They met each other. They're going out for an outing, and sure enough, they got up the auto and they pulled into a circle, and they were all hanging out and talking and everything else like that. And I could not, for the life of me, I couldn't figure out if I liked it because they were outside doing something and they were together and it was cool, or if it was like, that's too many motorized vehicles on the path all together, and they're riding 2x, and they're doing this and they're doing that. So it's a different world. We're going to see some different things in the space that we're used to occupying, and I guess I welcome our new technological overlords.
Those e-bikes are the most dangerous on the mountain bike trails.
Yeah,
the most dangerous.
I feel sorry for all of you who are mountain bikers and have to deal with this on the mountain bike side. If I was a mountain biker, I cannot imagine that I would be comfortable with that.
I think it was about 3 weeks ago, I was out at Palos, and I was in 3 ravines, and at the beginning of it, there's like a climb that's pretty long. And I just heard somebody say on your left, and I was like, what the hell is that? Because I'm not used to getting past, on mountain bike trails. And this dude came flying by me in cargo shorts and
sandals.
Basically,
hip sack on.
and a fluorescent yellow jersey. And I was like,
yeah.
What in the hell is that? But I mean, it was a legitimate mountain bike he was on, but it was like, I was like, well, alrighty then.
Yeah.
But I rode
when you're on like a path area or something like that, and you just out of the blue, and you haven't heard it for every year, and on your left, your first instinct is like, the fuck you are.
I always just say, hey, I'm on your right.
But that's a good one. On your left, on your right.
Yeah.
But I got to ride last summer I was out, and I was lucky enough to be able to go to Tahoe for a week. And one day I rented a brand new Canyon. It was like a $10,000 e-mountain bike. And it was one of the best days I've ever had on a bike. I'm not even exaggerating. Getting to rip up those fire roads. And I mean, I did 55 miles with like 12,000 feet of climbing or something like that. And I was completely exhausted by the end of the day, but I used every cell on that damn battery. And it was just so fun because, I mean, you could go downhill on that bike and it just took everything. You could hit anything you wanted. You could do whatever you wanted. It was so much fun.
Oh, wow.
Dude, what you just said is super powerful. I mean, you said you were blown out from the ride. You had a lot of fun. So that means you got to exercise and had fun ripping around. Yep. That's sick. Shit,
I'm not exaggerating. It was one of my favorite days that I've ever had on a bike.
I totally agree that there's definitely a place for e-bikes
in the right application.
I think I would love to have one in the right application.
I think my personal opinion is that e-bikes, certain class of e-bikes should be allowed on mountain bike trails. But again, I think that posted speed limits should be there, and signs just try to be, maintain a respectful speed. I think, to your point, Rick, somebody going as fast as he was in there is probably not safe to other trail users,
or even to themselves. I mean, now granted, I don't really care if people get themselves into their own mess, but as long as they're not hurting others. But I just can't imagine. I feel sketchy having the average Kyle and Karen having that much power and speed on a paved path.
Right.
A mountain bike or a technical, even if it's a flowy trail, a technical trail of any sort, having that amount of speed and the weight and no skill to be able to control the bike, or limited skill that runs out when you get to those speed.
Right. And for
the other
single
thing
track,
is,
I mean, Palos is 2 directions and multi-user, so it's even more risk.
And I don't think you're going to you're hearing about e-bike accidents that are happening and stuff like that, but I don't think that you're really getting any valid stats, because when they go to the hospital, it's just being reported as a bike accident.
Yeah.
I don't think there is a slot yet that says that differentiates between regular bikes and e-bikes.
Like motorcycle accidents.
I would say that the same percentage of people on e-bikes that are behaving inappropriately on trails is probably the same percentage of people on non-e-bikes that behave inappropriately on trails. So, at some point you just have to, I don't know. I think just banning all e-bikes is not the answer, because I want people to have access, especially people that, might have, an injury or whatever, to have that ability. But I don't know. I don't know. Like I said, Palos is unique in the fact that it's two-way traffic and there's a lot of hikers and stuff like that on the trails. So I could see a system like that not permitting e-bikes, where someplace like Kettle Moraine that's all one way would permit them. But I don't even know what the rules are for Palos or Kettle.
You're not supposed to have e-bikes in Palos.
Yeah.
I can believe
Not at
that.
all.
Not supposed to.
But that's the thing.
Correct.
I've seen them.
I'm not supposed to go over
As
what,
you
Most
have.
people
15
can't even
or
tell the
18 miles an
difference.
hour.
They're probably
Yeah.
not supposed to smoke meth in the woods either at Palos, and we know that happens. So
Palos is a free for all,
Hey-o.
and there's one cop regulating the whole thing.
right, exactly.
And,
he's
when
at a
you
stop
call
sign.
him, he just goes, "What do you want me to do?" That's the experience I had with the Barrington Hills cop when I finally pulled one up and was like, "Dude, that car just X, Y, and Z," and he's like, "What do you want me to do?"
Yeah.
Okay,
Okay.
yeah, I guess I see your point. All right, we hit on your epic stuff. I didn't know if there's anything else that you wanted to throw in real quick on that.
I would just put in a plug for the event in general. Last year they added a gravel race on day 2, and with 2 different distances. And it is, I've never done anything like what Tim has been doing, so I don't know how it compares in terms of terrain. But if you want a gravel race that is borderline, you should maybe even have a mountain bike on this thing, because it is so gnarly in so many areas that it is almost borderline not really rideable on a gravel bike. If you like that kind of shit, go do this.
And this was in
It's northern Wisconsin,
Yeah.
In the Cable to Hayward, Chequamegon corridor, where the Berkey
and all that. So there you go, and it's Epic Bike Fest or something.
Epic Bike Fest. It used to be called the Bora Epic, but now it's just Epic Bike Fest.
Okay.
I did not know that. And then that's an easy lead into, obviously, Tim.
Yeah.
You had a great experience, from what I can tell, down at Belgian Knee Warmers, Belgian Waffle Ride, whatever it is. Anybody remember the Belgian Knee Warmers stuff?
Do they actually have waffles?
They do.
No.
I
Yeah, they
imagine
have
they would.
waffles.
Yeah.
So Belgian Waffle Ride down in North Carolina, which is apparently the most difficult.
Yeah,
one.
they have the Belgian Waffle Ride has expanded its brand from its original, which still runs out in San Marcos, which is the first one. They've expanded into about 6, I think they have now, and this one I did in outside of Hendersonville, North Carolina. It is the hardest one in the series. Tons of climbing. I think I did the wafer, 79 miles, 9,000 feet of climbing official. Yeah, it was just awesome. It was a great event. My first Belgian Waffle Ride. So the only kind of a bummer was it was the week after Unbound. So all the people that were blown out from Unbound didn't really participate. I think there were still 900 or 1,000 participants at this event. Not one of the biggest ones, probably, just because of where it landed on the gravel calendar. But it was still an awesome experience. All the roads, all the surfaces, quality pavement, fantastic climbs, gnarly single track that, as you just mentioned, Leah, I probably would have been better if I had a mountain bike, but that's not an option. Undergeared, which was fun at times. Some running. There was a lot of everything, and it was an awesome experience. So much so that I'll probably be going to Kansas in October, but that's a much different style.
Now, you ended up getting, what, third overall?
Third overall in the wafer, and I won my age group.
You won your age group.
Yeah.
So
it's pretty good.
That's
congratulations.
Yeah, thanks. It's a fun time. I don't mind going uphill. I love it.
And what did you tell me beforehand or afterwards? You said Garmin said you were peaking or something?
Oh, yeah. I always chuckle when Garmin tells me how my fitness level is. It was like, yeah, you're peaking. I was like, oh, perfect.
You're in the green.
Yeah,
Garmin says you're in the green.
Yeah. Whoop tells you you're in the red.
After the race?
Yeah. In the day before, and then after it said I was peaking. So I take it with a grain of salt, but I chuckled. I was
53.11,
like,
dude. 53.
53. No, it was a 42.10. I needed it. 42.10. Sorry to lay you down, dude. I wanted to run my 2x, but I didn't have enough tire clearance. The frame didn't have enough tire clearance for the tires I needed to ride.
Yeah, it's that Boone. You're in current generation Boone, and I think they necked that down.
That's 20. That Boone is 2018.
Yeah.
So I mean, I could have done it, but I didn't want to take the risk of, getting my wheel out of true or getting stuck in some mud or whatever, and just not being able to go. So I opted for a different bike with wider tire clearance.
I don't know why they necked that down on the Boone. I think it was because they had like the Domane or whatever. That's their gravel-ish kind of bike, and they wanted to have a segment, so they gave it more clearance. And they wanted the Boone to be specifically for cyclocross, so they like necked it in. But you don't die from having too much clearance on a gravel or a cross bike.
No.
So I don't know why they really did that. But our generation has more clearance than the current one, I think.
Oh, does it really?
Yeah.
Yeah, I know I can just barely fit 40s in there, but you only get like a couple millimeters of clearance on the inside of the rear chainstays.
40 stated on the sidewall,
40 stated,
which
right.
actually is like 42 when you measure it.
I comfortably run 38s in that,
Yeah.
even though they say that it's only rated for 33.
Yeah.
Whatever. I was very jealous of Patrick McClarity's setup because his gravel bike has a front suspension fork, a mini suspension fork on the front for the gravel race last weekend. I was like, that would have been sweet. I know he's shaking his head. He's shaking his head.
I'm
an old dog.
Going back to 90s mountain bikes then.
Yeah. Okay. Fine.
If you had a 90s mountain bike, that would have been great.
All right.
I rode my mountain bike, and everybody on gravel bikes was absolutely flying past me. Now, granted, my legs were completely smashed to smithereens from the race the day before, but I couldn't help but think, I'm on this heavy, full suspension mountain bike. Even with the suspension locked out, I'm like, I can't go up a hill as fast as these guys.
I mean, every gravel bike you see that has suspension on it's only 10 mil. It's only like those.
You don't need much. You don't need a lot.
You see the Fox fork, and it's got 10 mils of travel. It's just enough.
Yeah, just enough.
How much is that Lauf?
Lauf. I was just wondering if a Lauf fork would be.
It's like I want to say it's like 20 mil, and it's like biggest.
I wouldn't use that just because of the rake.
Unless you're doing courses like that, though, you don't need it.
Yeah. I mean, I would have liked to maybe have 10 mils of travel this for the Belgian waffle ride that I did this weekend, but it is what it is. It was fun. It was such a blast.
So you had fun. You did well. Congratulations. Austin, local, also won the women's, the longest.
Yeah, she did the waffle. She did the waffle.
And you had a chance to actually ride with her for a bit.
Yeah, I kind of, when they staged the waffle first, and they staged the wafer, and then there's a category that's shorter called the Wana after that. And they put everyone in the same chute. They do their opening ceremonies and whatever. And I was kind of like,
did they do waves?
No, you start at one time. So I was in there, and I knew like 7 miles ahead there's a serious pinch point. So I'm like, okay, sitting and staging, little door opens up. I just creep up. I kept creeping up a little bit till I was like halfway to I was in the waffle field, and I'm like, I'm just going to start right here. And it started right here, and it started fast. Like there's a little climb out that got congested. There was a crash in the campground before we even got in the park or got on the course. Just people, nervous energy at the beginning of a race.
Did they motor pace you out like they did last year?
There's a lead moto, yeah. And then when we turned right onto the course, it was game on, and the race it just took off. And you bomb down this little hill, and then it starts climbing immediately, like 0.4 of a mile into the course. You just start climbing, and the race just blew up from there. So we managed to get in a good solid group on the climb, and then we descended, and then it was split into two groups. It was the front of the race, and then our group before the pinch point merged back into that group, and then we all hit the section, the pinch point together, and the race was on from there. But it was crazy, so much fun. But yeah, back to what you were saying, Rob. After the one really crazy single track section that we were climbed for like 5 miles on this really sketchy, like rocky single track up to a ridge, and then right before the waffle went one way and the wafer went the other way, probably for a mile, I rode with Austin. We had a nice conversation.
Nice.
And then we went our separate ways.
And then she won. Congrats, Austin.
So what's next, Tim?
Yeah, what's your next big?
I don't know. Like I said on the last podcast, I'm just gonna do all the bikes. So probably I may Toads started today, so I may throw my hat in that ring and get myself involved in the juiced up Masters pool. So be sure to throw me up if you see me and it looks like I'm struggling. Throw me the pool noodle.
Yeah.
I'll be up there too, I think, because nothing like a 38-mile mountain bike race gets you ready for 50-minute crips.
You'd be surprised.
All the bikes, just all the bikes.
All the bikes. And then, there's our little local mountain bike series that's going to start. Intelli's coming. There's more gravel thrown in there. Who knows? All the bikes.
All the bikes. I love it. I'm getting more miles in myself. Yeah. I'm actually enjoying it, and I'm riding a mix of bikes every week, which I usually don't do.
It's fun, right?
Fun. Yeah.
Yeah. Rick, what are you riding these days?
I'm just mostly doing. Yeah. Mostly just doing local stuff. So I've been spending a bunch of time getting this stuff together for the Little Apple that we're going to be promoting too. So.
Oh yeah, I saw that.
Yeah. So do a little plug, Little Apple. For those of you that are out of state, you can drive over to Illinois if you want.
Yeah. So that's going to be August 13th. It's out of Manhattan, Illinois. So there's three different lengths, 50, 100, 150K.
You said that like a question. You're the promoter.
I had to go into my my long-term memory and pull that out. Yes. So 50, 100, and 150K, absolutely no climbing. So it might actually be negative climbing.
Maybe 20 feet.
Yeah, maybe 20 feet.
Since you're the promoter, you might want to do something about that.
Actually, the gravel is probably deep. The gravel is probably deeper than the amount of elevation gain on that.
Yeah,
yeah. I would say it's real gravel, and it's about 80% gravel. So mostly crushed limestone. Depends on how they grade it.
Why don't you put up an appearance fee for Mike?
I was going to say. He's kind of busy, but if he's not busy at that point, we should figure a way to get him out of here.
August camp's got to be winding down, Mike.
Camps are full gas right now. It's all things bikes, but that would be fun to do a flat gravel race. I mean,
it is. It's completely flat and it's really fast.
Let's show some of these other gravel gurus how it's done.
Yes,
but it's really interesting because the array of gravel that is out there. I mean, there is a lot of variety in the gravel. It's like you get to points where it's like sandy and people aren't necessarily expecting it, and they go full blast into the sand, and people are just all over the place.
That would be awesome.
Yeah,
that sounds super fun.
GoFundMe for Mike and get him out here.
I mean, they have 10,000 feet at Unbound. How many feet of climbing do they have at Unbound? It's pretty technical at some sections, right?
It's not. I don't think Unbound's. Is Unbound 10,000?
Yeah, it is. It's 9 or 10. I watched a couple of videos yesterday. I think it's 9.
Okay.
So that's a different kind of rider that's going to win that. Some of these gravel races, you put a flat race together, and that would be kind of fun to go after.
It's just
it's all the roadies.
It's a 4-hour FTP test.
Yeah.
We're going to bring this back.
Every year. It's all the typical roadies are all contesting it out at the front.
It would be hard.
And
it would be hard.
One year Mets won it on road tires. 28s, 28s or 30s, and it all came down to when he timed his sprint, So there's a league group. There's a lot of working and rotating and everything. But I know there's to your point, Rick. There's such a wide array of gravel out there. There's big chunky gravel. There's your run of the mill, like chip seal size gravel. There's some that is mostly dirt with just rocks in between. You just surf the dirt trail from the cars, from the tires, where it's kind of cleared out and it's actually kind of smooth. And then there was that one spot last year, the black sand. Yep. It was like black sand cinders or whatever. And if you weren't ready for that was like getting dumped onto a beach, like at the last minute. I mean, that was crazy. Cool. And I was hearing the guys in the front group said that it just exploded there when they all hit it.
Yeah, and the other thing that's super interesting about those roads is they're highly variable, depend on when it rains. Because we were there like the 2 Wednesdays before it. We do like a pre-ride. The pre-ride's fun too because it starts and finishes at a bar, which is never terrible. And
have
the
no
people
idea
there
what
are
you're
very
talking about.
cool. There's a great outdoor area for people to eat and stuff like that. So, but we did these preview rides the 2 Wednesdays before, and the course was completely different at the day of the race because it had rained like the 2 days before it. So it's interesting to see how the elements change.
I will
And the
say
soil
I've
soaks
ridden
up
it.
the water.
I've ridden it 5-6 times at least, maybe closer to 10 times over the years. Just going out and riding it on other occasions as well too, and I don't think it's ever been the same twice. Every time it seems like it changes. They
No.
dump so much gravel out there, it's insane. So that like sections that were perfectly fine, the next time you come out, it's like super deep.
They maintain it. The roads manager, he grates it and stuff on a pretty regular basis. So they do take care of it.
Yeah, 5311 with 23s. I will say,
Let's rock and roll.
last year, we know a particular individual, friend of the podcast, Mr. Kenny LeBay, decided to go out there on his freshly serviced and restored team bike from U.S. Postal that I had serviced and got back running. He showed up there on his road bike with the original 23s on there, wearing a U.S. Postal skin suit.
This was 60 pounds ago.
Yes.
Too.
Yeah. He's lost a lot of weight since then. And he rolled around and he has no bottle cages on his bike and had no pockets on the skin suit, you know? And I'm like, is he really going to do this? This is ridiculous. He needs water. He has no idea how hot it gets out here. He needs some water. And I grabbed a bottle of water and I rolled up to him. I was like, here, Kenny, just take the water. Just take it with you. And he's like, can't, man. Got no bottle cages. And I'm like, no, just take it with you. He's like, no pockets. I'm in a skin suit. I'm like, you know how to put it up here, shove it in there. And he's like, no, thanks, man. I'm not doing the whole thing. I'm just going to roll along. And, his exact quote was, I'm going to punish Jake Bisher. I'm going to roll along in the first 5 miles
That was what he
until
wanted
it
to
gets
do.
crazy. And then I'm going to punish Jake Bisher and show him what it's like, what it really means to do this stuff. Well, we get back. I'm done with my ride. We're sitting at the bar waiting and everything. And it dawns on me, I still haven't seen Kenny. I'm like, well, apparently he did more than 5 miles. I never saw him. We got a call. After a while, we started to get worried. We got a call while we were sitting there, and he had done an extra 20 miles or something. He went like way for he lost the route. He has no GPS. He was riding with no computer. He just got his phone.
He did like
computer.
70 miles, and 30 miles of it he did on a flat tire.
Yeah, he got a flat. And he just kept riding.
Clincher, flat tire, and he just rode it.
That's awesome.
He
on his old
those
Mavic wheels.
He just rode it flat.
Kenny.
What else
Rode
did you do?
Flat.
I mean,
now he had did we have the liner in it?
No,
still? No, we took it out.
So he had set those up for back in the day when he was doing training camps in New Mexico. And so he's like, it's old school, thorn resistance. They would cut the treads off of another tire and they would line the, inside the tire with the other tread. And these were the old Postal team, like Hutchinson tires. So they actually said U.S. Postal on the side. And
wow.
We, when I got those wheels, he had the double liner in there. And I was like, these are ridiculous. I'm getting these out of here. And I got a hold of Vincent Gee, who was one of the mechanics for Postal. And he had some of the old tires still. And he had an old saddle and everything. So he sent me a bunch of the stuff. And I incorporated it into Kenny's bike. So he had brand new tires, in essence, new old stock. But they were the 23s, and he had no liner in them at all. And so he went out and he rode it. He got a flat, and he rode the flat for 20-some-odd miles.
And got lost.
So good.
With no water.
With
and
no water,
phone,
yeah.
because he had no pockets.
And no computer.
No bike light.
No route.
No nothing.
Nothing.
Kenny, if you're listening, I got a set of Continental Gator Skins 28s. You can get them for this
he
edition.
has since lost 50, 60 pounds. He's been riding a lot. We got him into a gravel bike. So he's been riding the hell out of that. So if he comes out this year, I think he's coming for blood. to be honest with you. And I think
He'll be
everybody
there. There's
in
no
that
way
group
he
should
won't be there. No way.
Everybody
he's
in
not
that
gonna
group
be
should be afraid.
Yo, Rick, can I get just like one climb?
One climb.
there.
I don't know, man.
We'd
I
have
think
to
you're going to have
build
to talk
it.
to God on that one.
Yeah.
Maybe we
build
can
it.
get an
Do what you gotta
overpass
do.
over an
We'll do a
expressway somewhere.
flyover. Build a flyover.
Overpass are our hills. That's the only hills we got. All right. Well, we're getting long in the tooth. I just wanted to hit one more thing really quick. Unchained on Netflix, Tour de France. For those that have watched it, just real quick. Yes, no, good, no.
Oh, I binged it after race day. I liked it. I thought it was well done. I mean, the one thing I thought was it showed to the cyclist, it showed a lot of the things that we really want to see: the excitement, the behind the scenes, the controversies of the race between the racers, the controversy of the race within teams, tactics, some riders not liking tactics. I thought that was a cool thing to see. You got to see the beauty of how hard the race actually is and what it does to the athletes over the 3 weeks, which I thought was well done. The only thing I kept thinking to myself is this going to really attract the next generation when they see how god awful hard this is? Like, is this attractive? Is there some kid sitting there watching this going, yeah, I want Band-Aids to be peeled off of me at night. I want to stick to my sheets. I want to eat the same thing
There
for 3
is an
weeks.
allure in that.
There is, because I was finding myself thinking to myself at one point going, man, I wish I would have found this portion of cycling at a very young age, because I would want to be there so bad. And I'm sure that generation exists now and has watched that and wants to do the same thing. And that is my hope. But I thought it was well done.
All right, Mike, we can get your response here real quick, and then you can take off. You got stuff to do.
Haven't seen it, dude. Haven't seen it. I have no reference point.
Well, you got homework. Sometime
Okay.
between now and 5 shows from now.
Yeah,
Give us some feedback on it.
it's gonna get busy for me here pretty soon. This might be one of the last ones for a little bit. So
We appreciate it. If you got a jet, you got a jet. We'll see you.
Okay.
Good luck with all the upcoming camps.
Thanks, man. It's been a powerful summer so far. It's been really good. So, I'll be back on it again. This is the last time you'll see the studio. Moving out of here. Just a lot going on. Camp's going. So
Mike,
sorry, I
can
had
you
to
talk
call
about
there.
your
As
camps
always,
real quick
anybody-
a little bit before you go out?
What do you want to know?
What are you doing?
Well, you
well,
can go out to pedalingminds.org and see. And make a donation.
We're teaching kids how to ride bikes. Yeah, at a fairly early, like no experience to some experience, developing control, and it's we get kids on Monday who can't pedal. They leave Friday. I mean, they're already pedaling on day 2. They leave Friday transformed bike riders. I mean, they look at it as we put on one Band-Aid. This week. We keep it fun. It's developing the happiness and desire to want to ride your bicycle, because you can do it with confidence and control. It's been
awesome.
It's been really powerful summer so far. It's been really fun. The kids are amazing. It's so fun working with kids. So
I have one quick question. Have you ever before taught adults, and do you ever think that you could do that in the future if you haven't?
all the time, dude. All the time.
Awesome.
It's not age. It's not age specific. It's ability specific.
Wonderful.
Right. So and they learn the same way.
It's never too late to learn how to ride a bike.
And they have the same fears, and it's true. Once you learn how to ride, you don't forget. Working with adults, it's like they learn. The way we were running our programs, it was an interesting way to test it, because there was a period of time between when we ran a certain level and then the next level up, and it was interesting to see, what they remembered and they had it. So it was cool. Yeah,
That's
I was
awesome.
just curious because we have a program in Northwest Indiana that focuses on special need kids called I Can Bike.
We started doing that too.
It's run from I Can Shine, and one of the stats that's always just blown me away is that 80% of people who have autism never ride a bike, and 90% of people who are diagnosed as having Down syndrome never ride a bike.
I'll tell you what, dude, it's fast. Sorry, I'm interrupting you. Go ahead. Finish what you're saying. It's interesting. Well, I was just going to say, so we started working with some children with special needs individually, and it's fascinating the interaction that I have with them compared to someone who's quote unquote normal, like is some of the kids who have autism listen better, are stronger, listen to what I'm saying. Like they may not be, like giving me their complete attention, but they nail it. It is so interesting. Like what I mean is like in the moment, it's the dynamic is very interesting. It's been a very fascinating experience teaching at different levels from different backgrounds and different needs and like different, like, it's really, I don't know, man. I'm grateful for the experience to see what that's like to have the ability to teach all these different people and they learn all the exact same way. Like I can guarantee it. It's really fascinating. It's really like, I keep saying that word because I don't really know how to describe it. I just like, I'm blown away at how people are and how they perceive and also all the emotions that go into it. There's so many different emotions and I find it so fun to I tell all my coaches, look at it as a fun challenge when you have an emotional child. How do you break through the barrier? How do you connect the dot? And I don't know, dude. I'm in it right now, so I can feel a lot of it. And I know that we have the impact. And it's not just the kids; it's the parents who show up too. The parents we work with really are thankful because now they can take their families riding. Yeah, I'm in it, man.
Super cool.
It is
super cool.
It makes me feel. Thanks, man. I appreciate it.
So
yeah, thank you.
That's your show reminder. Go out to pedalingminds.org, and if you see so fit, make a donation.
We are doing good work, and there's a lot of amazing organizations out there doing good work, and a lot of amazing organizations out there putting kids on bikes. And yeah, I'm
But
privileged.
It's still okay for people to go and give you a donation.
Yeah. Yes. I am privileged to do the work. I pour my heart into it for sure. Yeah.
Yep. All right.
So
I don't know if we need to do any more of the tour thing, but thank you for joining us, Mike.
Yeah, I'm going to go call the state now. I got to handle payroll stuff. So I'll talk to you all later. I'm glad I was able to make it today.
Yes.
And I
see you again.
Yeah.
I'll try to make it again in the future here in a little bit. We'll just see how things go.
All right. Thanks,
okay.
Mike.
Bye, everybody.
Yeah.
Bye.
Thanks.
With the Unchained, I don't know if we want to do a quick rundown. We do have to get going here to the track tonight, but
I found it amazingly wonderful to watch. It was very emotional. They did a really good job of dramatizing everything, but my sense was a lot of it was probably over dramatized. But I'm sure some of it isn't. I also I think even Wout kind of came out and said that he felt like it portrayed things in not the way it actually was. So was it entertaining? Absolutely. Was it factual? I don't think it was completely factual.
It's a movie.
Rick, have you seen it?
I have not seen it yet because I haven't had time to actually sit down and binge watch the entire thing. And I know that once I start, I won't stop.
That's exactly what happened to me.
Yes,
That's exactly what happened to me.
Yes. But yesterday I was listening. I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead. I was going to give my
yesterday
rundown,
I was listening to Bradley Wiggins' podcast, and I can't remember who he had on, but he was talking to somebody that was followed around for a long time, and it made it seem like they had hundreds of hours of video of whoever this person was, and they used 45 minutes of him in the actual video. So I'd be super curious to. I mean, I'm a junkie when it comes to all this stuff, and I'd be super curious to see. Basically, what he was trying to say is they could have told. They went into this and they didn't know what story they were going to tell, but they have thousands and thousands and thousands of hours of footage. And at some point, they probably could tell 3 or 4 more stories out of that footage if they really wanted to.
I agree.
They just went in that direction because that was, what was going on.
Obviously, not all teams signed up to be a part of this. So
it wasn't a matter
he kept
of
saying UAE. UAE wanted nothing to do with it.
Right.
UAE wanted nothing to do with it.
You got. I mean, it was entertaining. I would absolutely. I don't know if anybody who's not into cycling or the tour or know anything about any of these teams or these people would find it entertaining, but I think they would. I just think that it was a really fun thing to watch.
I think if you're into drama, it will draw you in.
Yes.
But one of the things it reminds me of, though, is one of the other shows I'm addicted to are the F1 shows. You know, they're on like season 4 or whatever
It's the
on
same
Netflix.
group.
That's where it came from.
It's the same group.
Oh, okay. But it's the same. It's like all you see are these people in helmets, and you never, get to see what they do or what they look like or what they sound like. And it's the same idea. You get to finally see who these people actually are.
I did appreciate when I was watching it. One last thing, I did appreciate when they were interviewing the riders that they were interviewing face to face, and some of them were in low points within the tour. The emotion that they showed,
Right.
Like that it means a ton to be in that race. First of all, it's another thing to be competitive in that race, and it's another thing to have it just go all wrong. And to see the raw emotion of that was pretty cool.
Yes, and I've also been told that the best way to watch this is to set the language to French with English subtitles, because you get a lot more of the raw emotion than when it's in the English language. I guess it just doesn't come across the same way.
I have heard the same thing, but I've also heard
I didn't hear that.
When
That's
we
good.
played it, it was in French and it had English subtitles. So that was the default for us.
Okay.
In our house. And I think it's just because I watch everything with closed captions on.
Okay.
And so I think it defaulted to
So do I.
native language. And I have heard that. So like Kaylee Fretz even made a post about it, and he's like, you need to really listen to it in French and just read the subtitles, because when they overdub, they were even overdubbing the people that were speaking English, and they're getting some of it wrong. I turned it on. I didn't know if I was going to watch the whole thing. And then of course it just kind of drug on, but it was last weekend we turned it on. What I noticed was my kids all stopped. Julie stopped. Eventually everybody was watching it. And that does not happen when I put a race on. Usually the kids roll their eyes and then they go do their own thing. And that's kind of why I put it on. To me, the whole point of this is that it's supposed to bring people that aren't a part of the sport into the sport to be fans of the sport, just like they did with F1. And apparently the F1 series really grew the popularity of F1. I haven't even watched the F1 series. I don't want to. I don't need another sport to pay attention to. So I was looking at it through the lens of, this is designed to bring non-cyclists into it. So I already kind of knew it would be over-dramatized. Some of the stuff would be blown out of proportion. And kind of what I found as I was going through it is I was like, this isn't as good for a cyclist as it is for somebody who isn't a fan of it. I think it'd be great. If you don't know anything about the sport, you'd probably love every minute of this. There were so many times where it was funny that you said about Wout. They were showing Wout in a bunch of it, and I was like, they are really casting a shadow on Wout that just isn't there. This is not Wout. They're not really telling the story of Wout. But it's like any other kind of reality series. You always hear after the fact that those that were a part of the reality program, that's not really how it was, but the editors created that through the editing and everything. So I can understand them looking for stories and trying to tell stories. And in that light, I thought it was great. I think it's great. I think it's entertaining. It brings people in. If as a fan and somebody who's been around the sport, I like the fact that I finally get to put faces to everything. Mm-hmm. I know these riders' names. I know kind of what they look like on the bike, but I'm definitely not as tuned in as I used to be. And I was thinking, why am I not tuned in as I used to be? It's because back in the day when I used to be, I had a lot of content, and that content was very Lance-based. And it was all about Lance and his team and everybody else. And through that, you got to see everybody's faces, and you kind of got to know them. So to me, a lot of this coverage is kind of like that curtailed and manicured coverage that they used to give the Discovery team and Postal and all that back in the day. And I used to absorb all of that when it was on OLN and they were playing it. And I could tell you almost everything that happened and why everybody was doing everything and all the shows that came out. This is very much along those lines, but with even a higher production value and even better done. And so I think to that end, I think it's extremely valuable to the sport. if you're really a big fan and you're a cyclist and you know what's going on, I'm going to say you don't get as much out of it, but you will definitely get golden nuggets out of it. The emotion, seeing some key things that you may not be aware of.
Well, getting to know there are key riders that were in the program that I really didn't know anything about, and that I now do.
Yeah,
you know how completely factual it is. I don't know, but it's close enough that it it was nice to get to know some of the riders that you say, okay, so and so Jakobsen won this stage, and I'm like, I don't know anything about this rider. Now you do.
Jakobsen's one where I was like, hey, I kind of like this guy.
Yeah. And so, I mean, that part of it, I really enjoyed. I've been following Wout forever and a huge fan of his. So nothing that they showed on him really, it's like, I mean, I always loved seeing any footage of him, but it was nice to get to know some of the other racers.
Just go to the Pidcocks. The Pidcock section.
That was the best. That was the best.
The Pidcock section.
I shed many tears watching this.
Oh, I did
every
too.
episode.
I did
was like, oh my god,
I did too.
I love Pidcock. I mean, I've never really. I knew Pidcock was good, but I never really paid close attention to him because he came up. He in cyclocross in the era of Wout and Vanderpool that were dominating so much that and I didn't really follow a lot of the mountain bike stuff where Pidcock where he won his world championships, and but I remember the stage where he did that just massive downhill descent, but to actually see them play the whole thing out the way they do in the show just made it even more amazing.
Yeah,
Watching him win Worlds 2 years ago was one of the most incredible things I've ever seen. Just with, being in the United States and watching him on that last lap go up the stairs, and then, the TV doesn't do justice how steep that hill is. He comes down. Then he comes flying down that hill and does a cross up over the big tabletop on his. I was right there. I have video, like his wheel was 6 inches from my head. I'm on the other side of the tape, and it was just it was the sound of the crowd and everything, and just him doing it. It was incredible.
Point of clarification, though.
He's so young.
Point of clarification. I have it on good authority that you may not have been completely 100% of your faculties.
That was the day before. That was the day before.
Okay.
Sure.
Okay. All right. I did hear stories along those lines.
So your judge of 6 inches from your head may be, but good stories nonetheless. All right. So great series. If you haven't watched it, I highly encourage you to go out and watch it. I didn't finish it. I got a few episodes in. I'm 5 or 6 episodes in, maybe. There's only 8, I believe. Or I thought I saw they added more episodes.
Yeah, I don't know. I watched them all in a row.
So, worth going out and seeing. So, apart from that, thank you all for joining us. Go and grab some Enzo's Buttonhole Chamois Cream at your local retailer to try to, give us a thanks for what we do here, because that's all we get out of it. Yep. Like, subscribe, share, all the things. Go out to pedalingminds.org. And apart from that, enjoy the ride.